"Here's my last gift," said the husband as he handed over the divorce papers. "I've decided to remarry, so thanks for being my ATM all this time. Here is the story of my revenge against my husband, who was a terrible person. My name is Helen, and I am 50 years old this year. Tomorrow is a special day for me because our family's long-standing debt will finally be paid off. My husband and I got married 20 years ago when I was 30 and he was 35. He inherited a liquor store from his deceased parents, while I was working as a company employee. We started dating with the intention of getting married through an introduction from an acquaintance. I had only one worry. What if he asks me to help run the liquor store together? At that time, I was working as a financial planner consulting insurance and finance for individual and corporate clients. I was earning a decent salary at the age of 30 and loved my job. I was studying for qualifications to aim higher. However, when my husband proposed, he said this: "I know you're working hard to get your qualifications, and I want to support you. There are employees and part-timers at the store, so we'll manage somehow. Pursue your dreams, Helen." His words were the reason we decided to get married. I thought I wanted to support such a generous person who was always on my side. As he promised at first, he should have managed our married life by doing his job and me doing mine. It was about a year after we got married when he went to work at the store on a day off when I was relaxing at home. When I vacuumed under the bed, a large amount of paper got caught in it. It hadn't even been 6 months since we moved in, so why were there papers here? When I picked up one piece of paper that had become crumpled, it said, "A dunning letter." The total amount of debt borrowed in my husband's name was $150,000. $150 is 000. It's not $15, right? My head spun. Why? Why did he hide such a large amount of debt? That day, I confronted my husband. "What's going on? What is this debt?" "It's not like that. It's what my parents left behind." The situation was like this. The debt belonged to the liquor store that my husband ran rather than his personal debt. It seemed that his parents had borrowed money, but when my husband took over the store, he also inherited their debt. They didn't intend to abandon their inheritance because they had borrowed against the land and buildings of the store as collateral. Although it wasn't my husband's personal debt, it wasn't something that could be left alone. "But don't you pay back every month with a dunning letter?" I asked. "I do pay back every month, but business depends on monthly sales figures. So there are times when it's difficult to pay back in tough months, but we have to pay salaries to employees and part-timers anyway, so we wait for repayment for that part too. The dunning letter is from that time." At first glance, the husband's opinion seems reasonable, but I don't think it's good to delay repayment. In fact, the dunning letter even had the words "final notice" written on it. I didn't want to worry Helen, so I kept quiet. "But everything is really okay. The store is doing well and we haven't been kicked out of our house, right?" "That's true, but..." Then my husband said something like this to me as I looked at him anxiously. "If you're so worried, why don't you pay off my debt with Helen's salary? You makes quite a bit, don't you?" "Huh? Is that how it is? It's not even my shop." But my husband continued. "After all, couples are supposed to help each other out. My debt is Helen's debt too. But even if you say that all of a sudden, is it okay for Helen if my shop goes under? There are a lot of people who would be in trouble if that store disappeared." I was taken aback by what he said. In reality, my husband's liquor store had become an indispensable part of the community. The store was located in the suburbs where there were few convenience stores or supermarkets nearby, so unlike a regular liquor store, it also handled fresh foods such as meat and fish and offered home delivery services. I visited the store several times and it was always busy. There were even customers who boasted that they were glad this store existed. "Please. I'll manage the store somehow. So please help me with the debt repayment." I liked seeing my husband work hard and take his business seriously. I didn't want his shop to disappear. I thought that being married meant supporting each other no matter what. If my husband was struggling now, it seemed natural for me to help him. "Okay, I understand. Let's pay back as much as we can from my salary every month. You should focus on running the shop. I can provide money, but only my husband can run that shop." More than anything else, I was happy that my husband relied on me. However, he changed after this. About 3 years had passed since I took over his debt repayment. Recently, he had been coming home late more often. "What are you doing at this hour?" "Ugh. You smell like alcohol." "Just hanging out with some people." "Helen, did you finish paying off this month?" For some reason, my husband approached me with a domineering attitude. "I already transferred the money last week. Why are you asking me that? My shop depends on you. So please keep paying back properly from now on." Recently, when he got drunk first, he would say things like that. I didn't pay attention to his drunken ramblings before, but now it doesn't feel good when he says it so many times. Isn't it like paying off your debt is just a matter of course for me? By the way, George is having his 3rd child. Lucky guy. George is one of my husband's classmates who runs his own business like him, and his wife works with him at their shop too. Speaking of which, there's something I need to tell my husband. Don't you think we should have a child soon too? But my husband's reaction was very cold. A child? This is the busiest time for the store right now. Besides, we have debts to pay off. How can you say something so carefree? Isn't it your debt? But I held back and said. But George has children too, right? We should have them too. George has both parents alive and his wife works at their shop too. It's different from us. There's nothing more I can do if he says that. My desire to have children that I had when we got married was completely crushed. So, from now on, I can't do anything until I pay off my debt? Well, that's right. If you earn a lot and repay the debt quickly, I'll consider it. The hatred swelled up in me as I looked at my husband's face, which was laughing cruelly. The sense of urgency to repay the debt as soon as possible also sprouted. It's scary. Even though it was an unreasonable demand, I didn't even have the luxury of thinking about it carefully. After that, I worked hard for my husband. I actively acquired qualifications, took promotion exams, and won salary increases. I started earning much more than women of the same age and also made advance payments on my debt. But the debt did not decrease easily. Before I knew it, I was over 40 and had to give up on having children. But it was okay, because my husband was there. I could do my best for him and he relied on me. As long as I believed that, I was happy. My husband's return became later and later, sometimes even becoming a morning return. Looking at my husband working desperately to protect his store, I felt that I had to work hard as a wife too. Because he was doing his best, I could do my best too. And time passed, and the day came when the repayment ended. Tomorrow is the last day of payment. For this debt, I have endured various luxuries. But from tomorrow, that will be gone too. You can use your own money as you like. Come to think of it, since we got married, we haven't traveled or eaten delicious food because we've been thinking too much about money. We are still in our 50s. We thought we would enjoy such things from now on. And on the day of repayment completion, I took a paid leave. I made a more luxurious dinner than usual and prepared wine and chocolate cake that my husband likes. Let's celebrate the repayment together and have fun. That's what I thought. When my husband returned from work and saw them lined up on the table. Finally. It seemed like 20 years, but it went by in no time, you know. He said to me. However, my husband trembled and bowed his head while still shaking with excitement. I thought he might be happy and crying. But then he suddenly began to laugh loudly in a way that I had never heard before. What? What happened? Immediately after that, the man who should have been my husband said something unbelievable. Today only, you're fired. Well, thank you for these 20 years, I really appreciate it. Thanks to you for paying off all the debt, I'm free now. So thanks for your hard work so far, but you're no longer needed. What? What do you mean? I couldn't understand what he was saying and asked him again. Then my husband took something out of his pocket. Here's the last present I'll give you. The green letters, divorce papers, were projected onto my eyes. My husband became proud and continued. I decided to remarry. You're useless now that you're old. Thanks for being an ATM all this time. Remarry, have you been cheating all along? Come to think of it, my husband often came home late for work or socializing. Maybe this person, while I was working hard to repay the debt. But his expression remained proud. I would never cheat on you like that. I've already found a new wife candidate. I want to divorce you and marry her. That's why I've been waiting for this day. The day you finish paying off your debts. At his cruel words, tears welled up in my eyes. The food I had prepared looked blurry, which made it even more painful. So, get out of here already. My husband handed me the divorce papers. At this point, anger was boiling inside me more than sadness or emptiness. Fine. Do you have any regrets? I asked him, twisting the words out of my mouth. Regrets? Why would I regret divorcing an old hag like you? I've already found someone better. Old hag? If I'm an old hag, then he's definitely an old man. How long does he plan on pretending to be young? At his ridiculousness, I regained my composure and took the divorce papers. I'll take these for now. I'll contact you later. I said that and packed my things before leaving the house. To think that our 20-year marriage could end so easily. It wasn't until I was alone that I finally cried from sadness and regret. After that, I consulted a lawyer to draft a divorce agreement. I also hired a private investigator to look into my husband's new partner and received a report on them. The agreement was sent to my husband by the lawyer. Then, he immediately called me. Hey, Helen. What is this document? I could imagine his face turning red with anger even over the phone. In contrast to him, I remained calm. It's a divorce agreement. What about it? I know that. What I'm talking about is this debt repayment thing. Why do I have to pay you back? My husband was losing his mind. This is about repaying the debt between us during our marriage. In other words, he wanted me to return the money that I had paid off instead of him. Why should I? You were just doing me a favor by repaying it. Why are you bringing up the past now? What are you talking about? You were just repaying it as my wife. It's different now that we're getting divorced. So what about your supposed regrets? Did you just realize that now? When my husband first brought up divorce, I immediately thought about repaying this debt. As someone who deals with insurance and finance on a daily basis, I often hear stories from various clients. Sometimes, they talk about divorce or inheritance issues. Thanks to that experience, it occurred to me not to sign the divorce papers right away but to go through a lawyer first. The amount of money that I had paid off instead of my husband was over $200,000 including interest. Since I had paid it all off myself, it was only natural for me to claim it back from him. That's all there is to it. My husband was completely taken aback by my firm attitude and the document with the lawyer's name on it. He had thought he could kick me out without paying any compensation or alimony. He really was clueless. You don't have that kind of money. Really? Then why don't you sell your store for funds? If I did that, there would be nothing left for me. Are you some kind of demon? Aren't you still 55 years old? You can still work if you want to. I didn't feel any objections during my conversation with my husband and wanted to hang up soon, but there was one more thing I wanted to confirm. By the way, what happened with your remarriage? That's none of your business. At his lackluster response, I couldn't help but burst out laughing. Sure, that might be the case. It sounds like you're going through a lot, so hang in there. As I was about to hang up the phone, my husband clung to me and said, Wait, Helen. I'm not going to remarry. I want to try again with you. I told him this before hanging up. Try again? Don't make me laugh. I'm rejecting you. I had been married to this man for 20 years. To an outsider, I might have looked ridiculous. But until he brought up divorce, I had respected him quite a bit. It was because I saw how hard he worked for his shop and customers that I was able to support him. But after 20 years, it turned out that he was just a fool. The talk of remarriage was entirely his own idea. He had joked with a teenage part-time worker named Becky, saying, Becky is cute. Will you be my wife? Becky had jokingly replied, well, if you let me be a housewife. He misunderstood her joke as being serious. When Becky realized how serious he was, she naturally freaked out. The situation escalated to the point where her parents threatened to sue him. When I saw the report from the private investigator, I laughed so hard that my stomach hurt. Come to think of it, my husband would come home late. I thought he was just a hard worker who was passionate about his job, but it was actually the opposite. He would often flirt with young girls at his favorite bars and clubs. He would say things like, "I'm surprisingly popular with younger girls, and I can get along with anyone because I'm a businessman." He would make girls uncomfortable by saying things like that. To him, I was no longer useful as an old wife and he only saw me as an ATM. His misunderstanding was so ridiculous that no one took him seriously and he almost got into trouble with the police for stalking. Cheating on me might have been better than what he did. He couldn't even stand on the ring of infidelity. But why did he come up with the idea of remarrying a younger girl in the first place? Apparently, it was because his friend George had become a grandfather. This is what George told me. As soon as he saw my grandchild, he said he wanted a child too. Even though his wife had been paying off their debts until then, she told him off for saying something like that. Who knew he would do something like this? George was speechless. I'm glad I don't have to spend my old age with such a man. I muttered those words to myself. After that, I divorced my husband. Since the cost sharing between us was not clear, there was room for negotiation with my husband to reduce the amount. However, I think I gave up just because I received a claim from a lawyer. It's amazing that such a spineless person has been in business until now. My husband sold his store to repay me. Fortunately, just before my husband sold the store, part-time workers and a few employees had fled, so they were not affected. Apparently, customers scolded him for selling the store that he had inherited from his parents, but when they learned that the reason for the sale was to repay his ex-wife, all of them were disgusted. The true story, which is like a joke, spread throughout the region that he got what he deserved after divorcing me. Even if we didn't sell the store, it would have affected our business if our bad reputation had spread. On the other hand, it might have been better to sell it before going bankrupt. The money from selling the store alone is not enough to repay me, so my husband is now working part-time while continuing to repay me. Sometimes, I was wrong. Can we go back to how things were? What was wrong with me at that time? George shows off his grandchildren. I receive such messages. Unfortunately, even if I refuse to answer calls, they come from various places. I asked my lawyer to notify him that, if you contact your ex-wife again, I will file a complaint. Then they stopped calling me altogether. As usual, my husband was abnormally afraid of lawyers. By the way, please ask me about my current job. I started working at a marriage counseling office. When I turned 50 and wanted to try a new job, an acquaintance started a new counseling office and I quit my company and joined them. Now I am helping couples who want to get married and also providing advice on money troubles between couples and how to choose insurance. Since they are going to be married as a couple, they are very popular with customers who want to talk openly from the beginning. This service has grown rapidly since its inception. Especially for someone like me who has had various experiences, it is also intended not to make others fall into the same trap. Although my salary has decreased slightly compared to when I worked for a company, I am happy every day that I can help people become happy. As someone who cut off her husband and became happy, today I am working hard as a bridge of happiness for someone else.